What is up, guys? So today I wanted to make a video on turboing your car. I bought this 1998 Honda Prelude earlier this summer, and I thought that I would simply repair it because it wasn't running and then sell it to make a bit of profit. But it ended up being a longer project. It ended up being a bit more work than I thought it would be, and I started investing some cash into it, and then I decided to simply turbo it. So I want to make this video to make everyone understand what turboing a car comes with. What exactly does that mean? How much money do you have to put into it? And this is a very budget build. So my goal was to spend as less amount of money as possible. But as I move forward and as I was talking to many people, it went on into multiple new upgrades, and I needed this and I needed that and I needed this and that. So this build is a Prelude 1998 with a H22A4. So it's not an H22, it's an H22A4, meaning that instead of having, I believe, don't quote me on this, but 220 horsepower on the H22, the H22A4 has 200. So it's the US version of the H22, not the Japanese model. So what I did is that whenever I bought this car, it was starting, but it was running extremely rough, and I checked the spark plugs. The spark plugs were quite dark. They had some oil on it, so it was causing misfires. So I ended up opening up the head and noticed that the valve seals were actually cracked, so they needed to be replaced. So after replacing the valve seals, the stem seals, everything was okay, the engine was running fine. So I decided to get the turbo build going. So I'll show you guys in a bit what it looks like. First things first, I have the intercooler that is welded underneath, so I had to remove the entire front bumper so that I can weld that on. A lot of people actually position it sideways. What I did is that I ended up positioning it exactly in the middle, so it's actually pretty neat. It gets as much air as possible, so it's not actually hidden behind the bumper, but it's strictly like the full airflow goes through it. So once that was completed, then as you can see from above, there is the intercooler piping that goes to the turbo. Then you have the wastegate that throws the exhaust return on the ground. It doesn't go back into the exhaust, so it does make some noise when the wastegate opens. Right now I have it set to 9 psi, so that's when it opens. I redid the entire block, so I repainted everything to make it all pretty. There is the strut bar that I have right there, but in any case, you have the throttle body that goes into the piping right there. It goes underneath and back like I showed you guys earlier right there, and it goes all the way like that. So what I needed to do is, a lot of people are going to remove their dual core rad, well, basically like the full rad. They're going to remove that and put a dual core rad that is just on one side. What I managed to do is I managed to fit the turbo, which is a T3 T4, with this mounted on. Luckily, I was lucky. There's not a lot of space, but it doesn't hit the rad, it doesn't leak, it all fits pretty well. Next step in the car, what I have is I have 3 gauges. The gauges are the turbo, the PSI that you would have for the vacuum for the turbo, so actually you know how much you boost that. The second one is the air fuel ratio. A lot of people don't think about buying those things, but they're quite important. And then you do have your oil pressure. So what they basically do is that the first one is going to tell you if ever you're getting boost and how much you're boosting at. Make sure you don't have a vacuum leak or anything like that. Majority of the time it's going to show on there. Air fuel ratio
definitely something that's highly recommended that I did not think of buying when I was doing the turbo build, and they can get quite pricey, to be honest. If you look at the AEM one, they go for about $300. So considering you want to be on a budget and one single little gauge is costing you 300 bucks, gets quite expensive. And if I would have to choose between the three, I'll be honest, I would definitely go with the air fuel ratio. The air fuel ratio will prevent a lot of problems. You make sure that the engine is not running too lean, or it's not running too rich necessarily. What I have it set at right now is that the computer is just straight tuned, so it does not have a full dyno tune on it. So what we did is that we made sure that there's too much fuel going into the engine so that it doesn't necessarily go too lean, so it doesn't pre-detonate, so that it doesn't have so it doesn't run too hot, because that's what could easily wreck your engine. So if you're not sure what you're doing, I definitely recommend that you make sure that the engine is running more rich than it's more running leaner. On a downfall though, what that's going to do is that you're losing a lot of horsepower. There's way too much fuel that is going into the block for the amount of air. So you're definitely losing on some performance right there. You're definitely losing on some horsepower. So after that, then you have your oil pressure gauge. Quite important. Make sure that your oil pressure is right. Make sure that you're not losing any oil, because if you're not getting any oil to your turbo, you will blow up your turbo. So let's start her up. Hasn't started for quite some time, so it's extremely cold right now. There we go. So as it starts, there is no vacuum right now because we're just revving at neutral. And then you have my air fuel. I'm at 11 right now. I'm running way too rich, but it's not necessarily too bad. And then you have your oil pressure. Your oil pressure is going to go up as your RPM goes up, and it's going to go down as your RPM goes down.
So a few important tips. Whenever you're doing it, take your time, do it once, do it properly. I did rush some of these steps and I had to reduce some of them 2-3 times. Some of the flanges, some of the piping had to be re-welded a few times just because I didn't take my fitments, my measurements right. So do take your time, make sure that it's done right the first time, and make sure that you read up online a lot, because there's a lot of things that, like I was saying earlier, that I didn't think of, like the ECU for an example. You need to tune the ECU. You can't just put a turbo on and expect for it to work. You need some injectors, right? Because if you don't have enough fuel, your injectors is not going to put enough fuel into the block, meaning that you will run too lean, meaning that you're going to not have enough gas. It's going to cause some problems for sure. You will not have enough torque. You will blow up your engine. And at the same time, if ever you have proper injectors, then you need a proper fuel pump. So that comes with another cost. So putting the turbo on, the intercooler, putting the piping, putting the blow-off off, putting the wastegate, putting all of the exhaust system, putting the gauges together, then making sure that you have the ECU, making sure that you have a software that you can tune the ECU, or at the very least socket it, chip it, so that your tuner on a dyno can do it. But at the same time, that comes with a big cost. Tuning a car on a dyno in Canadian dollars probably starts around $400, $500, $600, depending on the quality of tune that you're going to get. So those are all costs that you don't necessarily think of when you turbo your car, but it does come with a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of expenses. I've seen a lot of people talk about just getting a turbo kit online from eBay and put it in and you're good to go. I wish it was that easy. It's not that easy, because like I'm saying, you do have a lot of things that don't come in the eBay turbo kit. You don't have the ECU, you don't have the gauges, you don't have your blow off or wastegate. Sometimes you do. Injectors don't necessarily come with it. Your fuel pump doesn't come with it. The exhaust system doesn't come with it. And mainly the labor, all of the work. Even if you do all of that yourself, you do need the tools. So all of these things are actually need to be taken into consideration. What I'll do is I'll actually list in the video all of the things that I put in the car, just to show you and make you realize what you do require. And I'll be putting those on just so that you do have the baseline. So I would personally not go less than what I put in a car. because you will end up lacking somewhere. Not enough flow out from the exhaust, not enough fuels, not like, you know, all of these things are going to cause problems. So like I said, do it once, do it properly, so that you don't run into those problems like I did as I was building it.